The iPhone XS and XS Max are out today, and you might be wondering, hey, I love playing games on my phone, which one is the better one to grab? And the answer is honestly pretty easy and straightforward, the XS Max, for two very simple but very important reasons. First off, battery life. Games can be very draining on your phone's battery, and you want to make sure that you're able to get a lot of playtime in, and at the same time, have your phone available just in case. And a better battery is going to make sure that isn't a problem. Reason number two, screen size. Staying true to its name, the XS Max's increased screen size relative to its already larger body has created one of the largest phone screens ever made, and it actually contends with actual gaming systems. I mean, the Switch screen is actually a smaller diagonal, there's more screen real estate, but this gets very, very, very close, which is really important for a lot of games to make sure they're able to see everything nice and clearly. Anything that uses touch controls, your fingers aren't getting in the way of the action. It's going to give you the best gameplay experience. Now, of course, the next important question is, what games should I get? Because I don't know if you've been on the App Store lately, there's a lot of them. A lot. And there's a lot of good stuff to choose from, but we're going to go over 5 of the best games you can play today. First off, let's talk about a game that uses a feature that's exclusive to newer iPhones, AR. There are a lot of AR games on the market right now. Most of them are kind of just tests and theories, ideas of how games can develop, but there's a few that are starting to get really, really good, and a personal favorite of mine is the Birdcage. I am a huge sucker for a lot of escape room style games, puzzle games, things that are very interactive that you can do on your phone with the touchscreen interface, and the Birdcage is a very interesting idea in that it creates an actual, birdcage in augmented reality that you can interact and mess with having to solve puzzles. All you have to do is scan a tabletop surface and you'll see a birdcage emerge. What the words? Emerge is the word I'm trying to say. Not immerse. Emerge. All you have to do is scan a tabletop and watch an actual birdcage emerge out of the surface of it that you can then freely walk around, inspect, and mess with. And this is something that I think there's a lot of kind of interactive escape room puzzle games on iPhone, but AR is taking it to a whole new level that I cannot wait to see where it goes. Next up is one of my personal favorite iPhone games. I think it's something that has been developed perfectly with phone interfaces in mind, and that is Reigns. Reigns is a game that, if you haven't heard of, is basically, imagine Tinder meets some kind of choose-your-own-adventure story. You're constantly making decisions where all you're doing is swiping left or right and seeing how events play out, constantly having to balance all these aspects of daily living, and pretty much no matter what you do, you're going to eventually die and play as a whole nother king or queen all over again. Now, this is actually a series that has a couple entries going on right now. The original one is a king, the most recent one is a queen, and soon we will have a third entry that is actually a crossover with Game of Thrones. This might sound a little too simple at first, but actually the game is much more complex than you'd ever realize once you start playing it. It actually has a really kind of interesting backstory built into it as well that you fully discover as you play more and more. And while it is very simple and straightforward with just the swiping mechanic, this also makes it the perfect game to just pick up and play in short bursts whenever you want. Now, speaking of games that are suited really well to the iPhone, there's one genre I've always loved, which is Metroidvanias, and it's not something that's usually very easy to pull off with a touchscreen interface, but there's one game that has proven that idea wrong, and that's Dandara. Dandara takes the idea of a Metroidvania where you're exploring a large dungeon, re-examining rooms, backtracking, dealing with enemies, but changes its gameplay style instead of being a traditional side-scrolling platformer into a game that relies on touch controls where you're leaping from wall to wall and using ranged attacks on enemies. It all plays wonderfully smooth on a touchscreen interface, and it's so much fun. And something I really appreciate about it too is that I think a lot of times when people think about mobile games, they think about games that are very specifically designed for phone in mind. It doesn't have the same grand scale of stuff you might see on the PlayStation or the Switch. Dandara is one of those games where it actually blends the kind of scope, scale, and quality gameplay of a console game, but brings it home to a phone in a way that makes it a fairly unique experience and blends the two mediums perfectly. Fourth on the list, we're going to get a little less serious with one of the funniest games to come out recently on mobile, Donut County. And Donut County is a very simple game in which you're a hole. As a whole, you eat things up, and the more stuff you eat, the bigger the hole gets, and thus you can eat even bigger things. And that's the way the whole thing goes. Kind of imagine almost like a reverse Katamari, where instead of rolling stuff up and making a ball, you're just destroying everything. Now, at first that might sound really, really easy, but it actually gets fairly complex the farther you get, adding a lot of puzzle elements that you might not think about when you first learn of how the mechanics work. And more importantly, the game is just ridiculously funny at the same time. Both the storyline it has itself, and more importantly, the Trashopedia. Basically, as you eat items up in the game, those show up in the Trashopedia where you can look at images of them and then read short little descriptions that are oftentimes not at all accurate, but hilarious. Then we have a game that when it was first announced, honestly, I never would have seen myself recommending it to people, but once I actually played it, it really grew on me really fast, and that's Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition. Now I know if you've just seen gameplay of it, the art style is a little off-putting at first, at least it was for me, but it really grew on me as time went on, and it really is interesting how this game has taken such a massively scoped title like Final Fantasy XV and scale it down into a fun little portable game. While the gameplay and visuals are of course entirely different, it actually uses a lot of the same music, audio files, and recreates whole scenes from the game while making it a more condensed, shorter adventure that can be easily enjoyed on the go. As someone who played the original game before jumping into this one, yeah, it's a little weird at first, but if you give it a shot, it really is a lot of fun to play. And if you haven't had the chance to play FF15, this is an awesome way to experience the storyline without quite the same investment.